to do. And so you have to kind of take a breath and listen. But yeah, I always like to tell people I'm a bad oral historian. So this is part of a new initiative we have at CALS. We are actually part of the Memory Lab Network, which is through the DC Public Library. We got a grant through IMLS, which is the Institute of Museum and Library Services. And so we're part of this nationwide Memory Lab Network. And there's actually right now only 14 organizations total, including us, who participate. And so these oral history workshops are part of that. Eventually, when we get out of this pandemic and we can meet in large groups again, we will have a memory lab with a scanner. You can digitize your VHS tapes, your audio cassettes. If you took audio cassettes of, if you just turned on the audio recorder in the middle of Christmas one morning, one Christmas in 1982, and you want to digitize that because you're scared that the magnetic tape is going to disintegrate, which it will, we will have that ability, and you'll be able, it is a do-it-yourself memory lab, and you will be able to come in and do that in our research room. Right now, money is not flowing from DC, and so that's all kind of on hold pretty much until the pandemic's over, is our understanding, but it's coming. We also have really encouraged people to do a lot of personal archiving, get all your photos, get all your scrapbooks out from those closets, out from under the beds. I even keep mine under a bed, and get them out so that you can see them and digitize them, and then you can share them with all of your family members, and not just one person have them. So all of that, and then oral history. So I think a lot of people, the word oral history is a little challenging. It's a little scary. It sounds slightly academic, and it's not. It's really just a conversation between two people. I prefer for it to be with two people. Sometimes it is beneficial to do a small group of 2 or 3, especially I know when I have talked with my dad, having his siblings there is helpful because everybody remembers things a little bit differently. It can be challenging on a recording to do it that way unless you're videoing it, but generally oral history is a conversation between two people talking about the past. And the importance of oral history, I think, is it's really about everyday people and everyday people's lives. Oral history can be interviews with the great and the famous and all of that, but what oral history tends to do well and tends to capture well is the lives of everyday people, how we lived, and things that we did, how families lived, what you did for a living, how you shopped, things like that. And so it's an important part of history. It's extremely important for genealogists because they can learn a lot about their family or an extended family through these oral histories. And I always like to say that the best person to do an oral history is you. It's the person that is going to take the time to get out and do it. One of my former bosses used to say, and I always butcher this, but I'm going to try to get it right this time. The best oral history, a C grade oral history. So an oral history that's maybe not the best quality, you're not getting all the questions, but at least you've turned on the tape recorder and you've recorded it. So a C grade oral history is 10 times better than the A grade oral history you were too scared to do. And so a tape recorder, we don't use tape recorders anymore, but an audio recorder or a video camera can be really scary and really intimidating to people. And you just have to try to make them as comfortable as possible. I am really pushing using Zoom, using this platform in the middle of this pandemic. What better way to get oral histories recorded than in this kind of format? So you're getting both people recorded at the same time, and you're recording the conversation, you're recording their faces. And I think that people are I mean, we're 8 months in, right? So I think people that have spent some time on Zoom are a little, it doesn't make them as nervous as it once did. I know people still have problems seeing themselves. I hear that a lot. But if you can just capture it and get them to have a conversation, even if it's just, I know families and friend groups are having kind of Zoom happy hours and Zoom dinners and Zoom conversations. So record it. A recording can be taken from Zoom, and then you've got it. And I think it's kind of neat because it's a little bit less, it's more natural. That's the word I'm looking for, more natural. So, yeah, so take a chance on getting out there and doing the oral history. And I know it can be nerve-wracking. I'm an extrovert and I can talk to a wall, but an oral history, again, it's a scary thing for me. And try to get different people, different perspectives. The memory is a really funny thing, and people remember things very differently. People can have experienced the same event at the same age, at the same time, but the way they remember it is going to be completely different. I think a really good example is major national events. I think in, 10, 20 years, people are going to say, so what did you do during the pandemic? Did you make sourdough bread? I have not made sourdough bread yet, but did you hoard toilet paper? How many rolls of toilet paper did you, so those are going to be some questions. Other kind of major events, obviously, the assassination of John F. Kennedy is a big deal for people of a certain generation. 9/11 is a big deal for, these kind of moments for my generation, for my friends. We often talk a lot about every January when the Challenger explosion happened. I was in 5th grade. We all watched it on television in school. And these are people that I had been in school with for years and years. And so that was very, I guess, traumatic for us. And so we all can kind of have that collective memory. So collective memory things are really important. And then you can get into the, so how old were you when that happened, and where were you? Who were you with? Those kind of things to really bring people out of their shell. So Benji really likes to, and I have to remember to do this, he really likes to call the person telling the story the narrator. I've also heard storyteller used. I was trained to call them interviewees, which is very sterile. So I do like narrator or storyteller much better, but because I was trained that way, I tend to slip back into those habits. So the narrator is the person telling the story. And it's, so, the interviewer is the person that is recording the story or asking the questions. And there are two different kinds of oral histories I think of. There are big life histories where it's multiple sessions, and you're going to sit down and you're going to start with, this person was born here, and work your way through their life. And those are very time consuming. They can be very exhausting for both the narrator and the interviewer. And then there are these kind of snippet stories, and that's kind of what we're hoping people will do with our recorders, which I'll tell you about in a minute, is get these little, get some basic information. Where were you born? Who were your parents, and that kind of stuff, but really not get into the nitty-gritty of everyday life. Well, you are getting into the nitty-gritty of everyday life, but you're looking at it at a much bigger perspective. You're not taking 5 and 6 hours to get the person talking and to get all the information down. Sorry, that is our in-house bell system for virtual school. So it's going to go off in another 4 minutes when he has to actually be in class. So we're doing virtual school in this house. So I have a set of reminders on my phone so that I remember when he has to change classes. And oral histories, I think a misconception about oral history is that they are always audio recordings. And they're not. They're actually, a lot of the ones that we have at the Butler Center are video recordings, which is great. Again, this is a perfect opportunity for Zoom, that you can capture this, capture the video of people, because that's fabulous to watch people's mannerisms, what someone looks like. If you can't do a video, make sure to take a picture of the person, or have them send you, I guess, a selfie if you're not together. We can talk also a little bit about doing phone interviews using your cell phone. You can record through your cell phone. But yeah, you want a picture of the person, and preferably a picture of the person at the time that the interview was done. We all have preferred pictures of ourselves. Often they're of us at a younger age. I always like to look at the obits and see, people will pick a very young picture of themselves and they're like 89. So you want to I want people to capture the face of the person telling the story, because an 89-year-old story is not the same as a 29-year-old story. And I just think that as a historian, it's better to see who the person was at that moment, wrinkles and all, or war wounds, I guess is what my grandmother used to call them. So we often get a lot of questions about how long an interview should be. It can be very taxing to have a conversation and to be on for a long period of time. It just depends on the individual. I personally think that an hour to an hour and a half is about as long as most people are going to talk, unless you've got kind of a family group and you're recording the larger family group and everybody can kind of take turns. Professional oral historians can do a 2 to 3 hour session, but that can still be exhausting. So you just kind of have to gauge it by your person, the narrator that you're interviewing, your comfort level with that person, how close you are with them. And we'll get into later, like how to keep people moving on in the conversation, but there are going to be times where you're going to ask a question and it's either the person doesn't remember or they don't want to answer the question. And so we have some tips and tricks in our toolkit to show you how to kind of keep them going and keep them moving forward. So I'm going to stop here for just a second, and I'm going to talk a minute about our little recorders that we're going to have. So this project all came about pre-COVID, with this idea. We were going to do the memory lab, and we wanted a way for CAL's patrons to be able to record. And not everybody, most people have a smartphone now, but we bought about 16 of these, and they're going to be at our branches, and you can check them out. So it's a little Olympus recorder, and it has a microphone, and you turn it on and you record your video. You record your audio. The long play setting can record like 1,600 hours. No, wait, 1,600, maybe 1,600 minutes. Hang on, let me look, because oh, it's recording me already. Okay, let's not do that. Okay, the long play. Well, now, okay, the long play can do 11 hours. That's a lot of interviews. And so you check one of these out. They'll be they're not in branches yet. They'll be in the branches. Let's give us another 3 weeks. I really think they're going to be in there next week, but I'm just kind of giving myself a little flexibility. We'd like them to be in there before Thanksgiving, but you'll be able to check one out, make your recording, and then you use this little connector and you can upload it to your own. So you put that part in there, and then this goes into your USB at your computer at home, and you'll download your file. Or they can help you at the library also to transfer it. So these are great little things to use. But now that we're in the middle of COVID and we're not supposed to be together and we're not supposed to meet and we're certainly not supposed to talk for an hour breathing on each other, I really am encouraging people to use Zoom. A free Zoom account, you can do 40 minutes at a time with, actually, I think with just one other person, there's a longer time limit. With 3 people, you can do 40 minutes. You can do 40-minute chunks before it cuts you off. So that's a great option. And then, most people have a smartphone. I know not everybody does. My mother has a flip phone still. She'll probably never have a smartphone, but you can use your smartphone and you can record. I'm an Apple person. There is a way to do this on Android, and I have those instructions too. But there's voice memos that you can do. So you can do voice memos with the person if the person is sitting with you. But then there is also a way to record the phone call. I believe you have to make sure that they realize that you're recording them, because I think that gets into wiretapping laws. So you want to make sure that you don't do anything illegal. And we'll talk about making sure that people know that they're being recorded and that kind of stuff. So those are our little kits. So I'm going to share my screen. Make sure to share the right. There we go. Okay, so can somebody give me a thumbs up if they can see a website screen that says oral history? Okay, good. Thank you. So this is our website, and under Butler Center for Arkansas Studies, we have this memory lab link, which is new, and under it is oral history. And it will take you to that same page here. And I've just created this. So most of the links are live, not all of them are live, and there will be more information on here. We'll have some sample interviews that you can look at and kind of see clips of sample interviews. You can also look at some of our longer, more academic interviews if you're interested in that. So over here on the resources, you've got toolkit instruction, and this is what's going to come with our recorder, but you can also use it from home. And I've pretty much been reading from this for the most part so far. And so it has lots of information about, how to make somebody comfortable, how many people can participate. These are kind of our tips and tricks. It's long, but it's not super long. How to get a good recording. Make sure that the microphone is pointed towards the person speaking. That's so simple, but so many people, and the microphone on these is on the end. I mean, it's like where you would think it's on the end, it's pointing, up, but sometimes the microphones on different recorders are on the bottom. And I've done that myself where I've had the thing going the wrong way, and get it close enough to them so that they can it'll actually pick it up. These are omnidirectional, and that's good. I think they're omnidirectional. I think I was told that. You want it to be in a quiet place. I can't stress this enough. If there's a lot going on in the background, these little recorders will pick up all of that extra noise. If there's construction work going on outside, it's going to probably pick some of that up. It can even pick up like the radio and the TV. I know when we've done oral histories before with people, a lot of times the television is on really loud, and the husband or wife, the person not being interviewed, is in another room listening to the TV or watching the TV, and it's really loud, and you have to ask them to, turn it off, which sometimes they're not real happy about. So, but yeah, you want to make sure that you're in as quiet a space as possible. This one's always kind of funny. Make sure to have tissues available. Or tell the person if you're doing it remotely to have tissues available, because this can be, a crying experience for people. It's going to bring up memories possibly. And you want to make sure that you don't have like cups of water with ice. those kind of noises. It's not as big a deal as it used to be. And as professionals, we like it to be as clean as possible. But you do want to think about that kind of stuff. And water bottles. Some people will play with a water bottle. They will sit there and crunch that thing. I mean, it is like, get them a stress ball. Get them one of those little soft stress balls, because they will take to, I watched somebody one time tear up a tissue that doesn't make any noise, but they were so nervous that they shredded this little tissue, and there was this little pile of white at at their feet when it was all over with. And be aware, this is my own personal one, be aware of you as an active listener, because a lot of us don't just nod our heads. We, really? Yeah. And so you have to be aware of yourself. You want your face to be expressive to, especially if you're sitting in the same room, or if you're recording it via Zoom, you want to be expressive to the other person, but not verbally. So, and remember to listen. That's my number one piece of advice. So this little toolkit, there's all kinds of information in here about starting your interview. Here's the thing I was going to talk about a minute ago. When you get your interview started, you want to have them make a statement on camera that they know that they're being, or on audio, it's recorded. They know that they are being recorded. That's important. And if you choose to donate this to us, and you keep a copy and you donate it to us, there is paperwork that has to be signed by the narrator, by the person you're interviewing, to make sure that we are allowed to have it at the Central Arkansas Library System as part of our collection, and that we're allowed to put it out there for people to hear and to learn from. And that becomes an issue. People get nervous about that. People get nervous about having to sign a legal document, giving their consent to something. And so, they need to know that this thing could have another life. What happens to it when they pass away, when you pass away? Where is it going to go? How is it going to be used? Some people will be more picky about that than others. So, just my name is, and today is the date, and that you're interviewing somebody, and then that person needs to say that they need to acknowledge on tape that they know they're being recorded. Okay, so before we get into what to talk about, let me stop sharing my screen. I've got a question. Looks like I've got a question from Jessica. Hi, Jessica. Jessica used to work with me at CALS. So is that already? Yes, that document, that thing I was just scrolling through, is already available on the website, and that's live. The paperwork that needs to be signed to release it to CALS, that will be on that website as well. It's just not there yet. We have a version, and that's a version from a year ago, and I want to make sure that it's still a good version. So yes, you need to get them to sign it at the time that they are interviewed. This is a problem that I have personally, because I forget to have people sign things. So every month we have a public program that we record, and I have to get this release signed. And every single month, and I've been doing this for like 24 months now, every single month I forget to have those people sign it. And so I have to send it to them, and I have to get it back. And so maybe even at the beginning, have them sign it. We've had a couple of people interviewed who were lawyers, and they will write caveats in there that, it has to be 20 years from their death before, so there's a lot of legal stuff, but we've tried to simplify it as much as possible, so that we're all happy when it's said and done. So anybody else have questions? Okay. So let me get my, so let's talk about what to talk about. Um, Benji talks a lot about setting an agenda. And I really like the way he says that because I never thought about it that way. But when you go into this interview, it should be about what you're wanting to get out of that person. And that may sound kind of that may sound kind of mean, but you have come in as a historian. We want to get certain information out of the person. There are certain points that we're wanting to get out, to get on tape. You know, it may not be as important to me to know about someone's dog or cat. I want to know how they participated in this event or whatever. So you need to know what you want to get out of it. And if it's I just want to get them on tape talking about life, then that's your agenda. But so set an agenda and make sure that your narrator knows your agenda and that they are comfortable with it. And because it's really, Benji would say it is not negotiable. Like the agenda is the agenda. Now, as family historians and family history kind of interviews, it probably is a little bit more negotiable, but just kind of think about it in those terms because you don't want to waste your time or their time. You want to be capturing it as authentically as possible. So that's really important to, you know, have an agenda. Just know what you're going in. Don't go in just with the recorder and sit down and say, you know, hey, Dad, tell me about such and such. They also, your storyteller also needs time to think about what they're, so you're going to want to do a pre-interview. And we'll talk a little bit more about pre-interviews, but you're going to want to have a conversation with them, not an in-depth conversation because it can lose a lot of its magic. If you talk too much to them about it, you've lost it. But you want to pre-interview to let them know or share a list of questions with them to let them know what you're going to ask them about so that their memory juices can get going and they can be prepared to talk about it. And don't just, whole life stories are so hard to capture and it's so exhausting. I just don't want a lot of people to think that they're going to, you know, start at the beginning of somebody's life and work their way all like 89 years. That's just exhausting for everybody. So you do want to, you know, set your agenda about here's the things we want to make sure to talk about. Now, in an interview, other things might come out that would be an agenda for a future conversation. So yes, so doing a pre-interview is important. You need, and it, like I said, it doesn't need to be an in-depth conversation. It needs to be a purposeful conversation with the person. You need to be taking a few notes so that you can see how you want to structure the recorded interview later. And so then what do you really talk about? So some jumping off points are, like I said before, national tragedies are unfortunately great for this because people have vivid memories. They've often retold the story over and over again. So they're prepared to talk about it and it makes them comfortable. It makes people relax when it's something that they're used to talking about. So we have a list for, and you know, obviously this is for specific generational groups. The end of World War II, either VE Day or VJ Day, if they remember that. I mean, someone as young as 10 years old in 1944, 1945 could recall some of those events. You know, how happy people were that there was a parade. Obviously, the assassination of Kennedy, the moon landing. You know, we've just celebrated the 50th anniversary of that. You know, this was a major accomplishment for our country. And the Challenger explosion, the fall of the Berlin Wall, the end of the Cold War. I mean, for so many of us, it was just a whole different world, and it was, you know, in a night, it was gone. And we're still dealing with repercussions. We can, that's a whole nother program. But you know, it changed the way we viewed our world and we viewed our global neighbors. The Oklahoma City bombing often can have strong memories for people in Little Rock. You know, Little Rock was a site that the bombers looked at before they chose Oklahoma City. And so if people know that, they can often talk about that. It was also awfully close. Clinton was president, those kind of things. Obviously 9/11. But then happier things like holiday celebrations, like, you know, what did you do? What did you traditionally do for 4th of July or Halloween or Thanksgiving or Christmas? Any big holiday, there are traditions, and, you know, different people celebrate those types of holidays differently. So that's good. You know, asking them if there was a teacher who had had a profound effect on them. That can often get people going and thinking about, you know, that one teacher. The very first memory you can recall from childhood, a memory of the first time you voted. In Arkansas, the Razorbacks and sports are always a good choice to get people going. You know, there are different landmark games, whether it be the Miracle on Markham or when the basketball team won the national championship. I think it was like 93, 94. I can't remember. I remember it happening. I just can't remember exactly. But you can, you know, you can get into that, and that'll get people going. So we also have on the website, let me share again. Okay. So we also have a list of family history questions and topics. And so these are more in depth. These are more, a lot of times, like life history type questions. Tell me the name of your parents or your grandparents, where you were born, where they grew up, and, you know, kind of give me an idea. You know, did your family move from Pennsylvania and, you know, end up in Arkansas, and how did that happen? Was it a job? On my mother's side of the family, my mother was born in Detroit, but her parents were from Arkansas. They went there after the war. They worked in the automobile industry. And so she may have been born in Detroit, but she has Arkansas roots, and then they come full circle and come back to Arkansas. All kind of interesting things. So these are lots of kind of detailed, these are more professional oral history questions, but you can get ideas from them. And then we have the second, I call these the deep dive questions. These are questions that you may or may not want to ask. These are questions that are really going to pull on emotions. And I've got to figure out a new way to reword that first question. Do you think your family was normal? I don't like, these are not my questions. These were given to me. I just want to say that. But but yeah, I mean, was your family like the other families around you? I guess is really what they're trying to go for there. But these are kind of more emotional, more psychological questions about your family and the larger community around you. So yeah, they, you know, did you have a happy childhood? I mean, those kind of things. So yeah, those are the deep dive questions. They were originally given to me as the esoteric questions, and I switched that to deep dive to make it a little bit more approachable. And so yeah, so those kind of family, these are kind of some more detailed questions. What we don't want people, or what we are discouraging people from doing, is having like a questionnaire. An oral history is really not a questionnaire that somebody fills out, or somebody, you know, ask you the question, you respond kind of deal. You want to have open-ended questions. You want to avoid the yes and no answer to a question. You know, you want to, your job as the interviewer is to pull the stuff out as nicely as possible from from the participants or from the storyteller and narrator, so that they can feel comfortable giving it, because this is important information. And so then once you ask a question, you have to be on the spot to ask a follow-up question. So, and you know, this is where you can exert your voice. You know, what did you know, if something is unclear to you, you need to ask them. If they use a word or a jargon or some kind of detail that is unclear to you, ask them then. As soon as they finish talking, you know, so you use this word and I don't know what it means. And it's okay to not know what it means. So you just have to, you have to follow up at that moment, because you won't go back. You'll forget, I promise. And also, if you want them to go into more detail about it, you know, give more description, describe what the area looked like, or, you know, you really want to pull on all of the senses as much as possible. You know, there are smells that take us back to an exact spot. I recently bought this new piece of furniture that has rattan baskets that pull in and out. And so that's where we put shoes at our house. And it has these little drawers, these little wooden other drawers. That's where we've been putting our masks. My masks smell like my grandfather now. That rattan wood smell. He was a tobacco chewer. And he was out in the woods a lot. He had lots of dogs. He hunted. So something about the combination of all of that smells like my grandfather. And that it's just the weirdest thing. So those kind of smells, you want the person to try to describe that best as possible as they can. I don't know that, you know, I would have ever thought wood and rattan was what my grandfather smelled like, but now I'll tell people that. So, so we've talked about the recorder. On the website is also the full manual for this little recorder. We give a brief description of everything, you know, the basics, turn it on, how to record, all of that. But if you really want to know more, the full manual is on there. Let's see what else. We've talked about Zoom. We've talked about smartphones. We'll give more detail. I don't have a lot of information. To record on a smartphone, you have to have, I think, a third-party app that works, is my understanding. I'm an iPhone user. I know that Android definitely has to have a third-party app. So I'll get more detail and post that on the website for anybody who's interested. But Zoom, there's also WebEx, GoToMeeting, Google Hangouts are all options of how you could do a video chat. And again, you know, over these holidays, these next couple of holidays, as our numbers increase and as people aren't getting together in person, you could do something like a Zoom and start to have these kind of conversations and record it. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. The C grade oral history is better than the A grade that was never done. Yay, I got it right for the second time. Let's see. So we are encouraging people to donate their interviews to us at the Butler Center, to, you know, have them not only in a second place, but a place where people can access them. I mean, our mission here is to tell the history of Arkansas and through its people, not just through the famous and the governors and the, you know, the notorious, but everyday people and everyday stories are really important. One of the things that people tend to do in oral histories is they tend to bring things with them, like photographs or whatever. And so if you have someone who is has come to an interview with an image or a photograph and wants to talk about that photograph, you need to take a picture of it. You need to get it recorded on camera somehow where you can match it up with that part of the interview. You know, if it's on Zoom, they can just hold it up and then you can get a picture later and you'll be able to see. But that can help people, that can help kind of jog people's memories when they can talk about photographs. But you have to have, as the interviewer and the recorder, you have to have a way to make sure you know what they're talking about. Again, they're going to have to give as much detail as possible about it. Get them to give as much detail as possible about it verbally. So yeah, so we will have a way for you to submit your interviews with your documentation, with your release forms on that webpage, on that oral history. So it's the address is robertslibrary.org/oral-history. I'm going to put that in the chat. Hang on, let me put my Post-it note. And make sure I spell it correctly. Okay, so robertslibrary.org /oral-history. And then at the end of this toolkit packet that I was showing you, Benji has written this thing called The Spirit of Oral History. And it really, you know, it talks about oral history from his perspective, from all of his training, from what he has, you know, that it's, you know, we're seeking information about past events so that we can better understand those events and the people who lived them and the people that are telling us these stories. He says that, you know, it's not a questionnaire, that you really want to leave it as open-ended as possible for the narrator to move the story along. So you've got certain things that you want to get out of this. So you want to talk about this specific period of time of this person's life. But back to that agenda, you're not wanting to tell them what to say. And I think we all have an assumption, we can all assume, you know, that people will say a certain thing, but you're wanting to give them the platform, ask them the question, and then allow them to take it where it's going to go, because everybody's different. It's really important not to rush oral histories. Now, don't wait until the person dies. Please don't wait until the person dies. We've all been in that situation, but you want to take the time to do your research. Now, for most of us, I think probably here on this call, you are interviewing family members. So you've been doing research for this all your life. All those conversations, my dad grew up in this really small town in East Arkansas, and there was nothing to do. And so all they did was sit around and talk about who had died and who had gotten divorced and who had moved back and all of that. And all of those stories, you know, I mean, in some ways I wish I had had a recorder sitting there and doing it, but so I've been listening to all of those. And so I can ask my dad questions about those folks. So that's kind of what you're wanting to do. You're wanting to get that conversation going. And that's why I said, you know, sometimes it's nice to have, if there's siblings involved, they can help each other remember things. It's also fascinating to find out when they remember things differently. So yeah, so asking questions about childhood and their background and their experience. If it's someone you don't know very well, you're going to want to get as much information as possible about them. I mean, it will be important to know whether this person was raised Christian or Jewish or Muslim. You know, preferably you don't want to ask somebody about Christmas if it's not a holiday they celebrate. So just kind of think about that. So, and be curious, you know, be curious, be empathetic to these folks, because they're doing you a great service, I always think, by, allowing themselves to be recorded. I can't stress how much a lot of times that really freaks people out. And it doesn't even, it's not scary. It's little, see, it's little, but this really is terrifying to a lot of people, not to mention the camera. So the video camera. So, okay, let's see. Jessica wants to know if it becomes immediately available to people after you submit it. What nice. No, honestly, it'll take a while. I don't want to say how long, because if I say too long, then my coworkers are going to want to kill me. And if I say too soon, they're going to want to kill me. But it takes time. I mean, all archives deal with a backlog of everything, because you're getting too much stuff all the time, and you need it all. So it does take time to get it processed. So it's not available immediately. And a lot of narrators or storytellers are not going to want their stuff available until after they are no longer with us. They may be fine with you recording it and knowing that you have it, but they don't want it on a public library website for the world to listen to. So any other questions? I know I have just dumped everything on you guys.
Hey, Heather, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I had a follow-up question to that. Okay. Basically what you're talking about. So the project that I was sort of thinking about, and even thinking about more doing oral history with my family, I think they would fall into that category of not really wanting it immediately available. So do you guys have a process in place with cows where, like, if I submitted a video and then that person said, I don't want this to be shown for at least another 20 years. I don't want it to be in the archive until like 2050. What's the process for the archival people to know when to make that digitally available?
So we deal with restricted stuff all the time, from government documents to, so it is flagged as this is not available until a certain amount of time. We like people to give us a specific date. Nobody knows when they're going to not be with us anymore, but we like people to say that you can release it in 2075, so that people can know, so that we have an actual date as opposed to the person dies and then 25 years. But yes, the archives has a process. Things don't happen quickly there. And so, and I mean that in a good way, they take their time. And so it would just be flagged. And nobody could look at it. Not just is it not going to be on our website, but if somebody came into the research room, it would be restricted. And so we deal with that stuff all the time. That may not be as detailed, but that's, I can find more detail out about that. I can get some real specific answers from somebody about that. But yeah. So yeah. And I would say that a lot of people don't want their stuff out immediately. One thing we don't like to do is have them go in and edit it. If you say something and you say something genuinely, and then you hesitate later, it can be a little frustrating for historians. Not that we necessarily want like the dirt and the nitty-gritty of stuff, but we want to know how it really was. We don't necessarily want it edited or sanitized, because you're like, oh, I don't know if I should have really said that. So I would prefer to have something restricted, and for years, than have them not say it at all or want to go in and edit it themselves. But again, with you guys, most of y'all, I hope, are going to do family, kind of family story stuff. And I don't know, there might be something great and scandalous, but maybe not. Any other questions? Oh, yeah, and Diane, unmute yourself. Yeah.
So I have a question. About 15 years ago, I took a video camera in and interviewed a priest, Lawson Anderson, who is a great storyteller. And he has since died, and I've given the video to his family, to his children. So retroactively, do I need to get permission from them? It's just he's he was a well-loved priest and a fabulous speaker and a fabulous storyteller. Do I need to get permission? I can't from him, obviously, but from his family, do I need to get permission? How do you do?
I would say yes. Yeah, probably. Yeah,
Okay.
you would need to get permission from his heirs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Unless you have, I mean, do you have a signed document from him?
I wasn't savvy enough to do that.
Yeah.
I just said this is a great gift for me, and it
Yes.
turned out that it was a good gift for his family too, because he died. So
yeah, no, you would need to get permission from you would need to get his heirs to sign off on it. Anybody else? Well, if there are no other questions, then please email Benji if you have other questions. Email me. You can email me as well. You should all have my email address from the invitation, but here is my email address with my weird last name. And I encourage you to come back next month. This happens on the 3rd Tuesday of the month at 2:00. And so Benji will be here next month. And he will talk a lot about oral history, kind of the theory of oral history and how, oral historians, the way oral historians view their job. And he's a good speaker. So you've gotten the nuts and bolts of how to do some of this. And hopefully this can, if somebody wants to jump on Thanksgiving and Christmas and get that done, you can go ahead and get started. But I do encourage you to come back. And you can come every time if you want. We're going to be here for the next 6 months at least. So yay. Thank you all for coming. This was great.
thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.